Should we be selling Cunha to Raul Jimenez with that fantastic home game at Southampton? And who do we captain in Game Week 17? Those are the final decisions for my Game Week 17 team. And we're going to discuss all of that in today's team selection. So as always, if you look forward to it, make sure to drop a like. And of course, smash the subscribe button for daily fantasy content. Enough waffling. Let's get into today's video. So first up, a quick recap on how Game Week 16 went. Last time we spoke, we still had the Monday night game to go. I was praying for a Semenyo hat-trick. Instead, we got a blank and him coming off after 65 minutes. Doesn't sound like it was an injury, but if it isn't an injury, then that's a slight concern why he went off early doors. But ended up scoring 44 points for Game Week 16, possibly the worst game week of my season so far, and a red arrow down to 224k. So it isn't a disaster, but we need to make sure we bounce back with a green arrow in Game Week 17, and I'm adamant that we can do that. So just quickly running through some of the scorers because there weren't many good ones this week. Sells with the 2 pointers, still happy with the Forest defence. No need to rush to a goalkeeper transfer as of now. In terms of the defenders, wow. When you talk about an FPL swing, 8 Nori with the -2 points, getting that red card after the game. Meanwhile, other managers who had Lewis Hall at the same price got a 15-point haul. Pun intended. So 17-point swing, depending on whether you had 8 Nori or Hall, was basically the difference between a red and a green arrow in Game Week 16. Trent was one of the new players that I brought in. A little bit disappointed, and I don't know if I love him as a pick, but obviously with Liverpool's double game week around Game Week 24, we believe, I think just long-term, he is a great asset going forward. And it's worth noting, in the Carabao Cup, he only played half the game. So we are expecting him to come in for that Spurs game. No problems in terms of the minutes. And finally, Gabriel. Loads of people sold him. 9-pointer, showing why he is a fantastic option. And he will be a season keeper as long as he doesn't get injured in my team. In terms of the midfielders, the other player that I brought in was Anthony Gordon for Brian Mbeumo. In isolation, obviously the transfer was a disaster with Mbeumo getting the 10-pointer or 9 in the dying minutes. Gordon getting 6. Could have been a lot more for Gordon after watching the game back, and I'm fine with him for now. But of course, the reason why I brought him in was because I couldn't get to Alexander Isak easily, and I felt like I wanted a piece of that Newcastle attack. And I do think Gordon is a brilliant differential. Palmer with the captaincy blank is what it is. Semenyo with a 3-pointer, a little bit of a problem in this team. Salah, and then of course Saka with the 3-pointer. Up top, João Pedro continuing to be disappointing with the 2-pointer, and the man of the moment, Cunha. Now, what a roller coaster of a game week, because he delivered that 9-pointer, and whenever he gets an attack in return, you know Cunha is getting bonus points because he is so ridiculous on that baseline bonus. So that 9-pointer was so important for this game week. The problem, he now is facing a possible ban. The FA have officially charged him. We are now waiting for Wolves to see whether they appeal for it. If they do, then we'll be in a position where Cunha actually will be available for Game Week 17. And then after that, we have no idea. And we're going to touch on Cunha in a minute because I think that deserves a separate section in isolation. So 44 points. Let me know how you got on in the comments section. In terms of my team, the problem players are going to include Cunha and possibly downgrading someone like a Semenyo in my team who isn't really looking like a fantastic pick long term. So let's touch on those now. So as I mentioned, at the time recording, we are still waiting to see whether Wolves do appeal the ban that is possibly coming for Cunha. I'm expecting they will appeal it, which means he will be available for that Leicester game away. And if you're in a position like myself where you still own Cunha, if you can get yourself easily to Alexander Isak, then I do believe that is a no-brainer. Yes, Cunha is a great option for this weekend. And in my position right now, I cannot get to Alexander Isak with one free transfer. So I think the position right now, just to kind of clarify, if Cunha actually appeals the ban and he's then available for the weekend, which we are expecting, I think you do keep him. Van Nistelrooy, while he's picked up a couple of good results for Leicester, defensively they have been all over the place. You only have to look at that first game against West Ham at obviously the King Power, and they were terrible. West Ham should have scored a hatful of goals. And I do think Wolves, with Gary O'Neill gone, the players now actually playing for something, I think Cunha could deliver once again. So I would be keeping him if they appeal the ban. Now, of course, we need to look at a little bit of an alternative situation where if he does get banned and it happens this weekend, who do I go to in my team? Well, as you can see, there are 3 options on my radar right now. We got Raul Jimenez at the cheap alternative. This will actually free up a bit of money in my team, which could be quite important. Then we got Chris Wood, basically the sideways move. And then we got Alexander Isak, which would require a points hit. And I would have to upgrade him. And the funds would basically have to come out of Anthony Gordon, somebody that I've already just brought in. I would be then looking to downgrade Anthony Gordon to someone like an Ahmad or someone like an Enzo. And as of right now, I think Ahmad is probably the more exciting one, but Enzo probably is the more logical pick. So if I can get to Isak, it would be a points hit of doing obviously Cunha to Isak and then downgrading Gordon to Enzo as a bit of a long-term move. But right now, looking at Isak's minutes and fixtures, and also the fact that I own Anthony Gordon as a bit of an alternative, it's one of those classic cases where I wish I had Isak. I don't think Gordon can cover Isak at all, but is it worth me taking -4 or possibly a -8 to just basically swap Gordon to Isak? And I think the answer is no. I don't think the fixtures long-term are fantastic. And we know Newcastle are very much a Jekyll and Hyde team. Away from home, they really aren't that good. At home, they are monsters. So I don't feel compelled to rip at my team to bring in Alexander Isak, even though, of course, he has been brilliant over the last few weeks. So for me, it's Raul or Chris Wood. Now, Raul Jimenez seems like the no-brainer with the home game against Southampton. My only concern is that this guy plays 70 minutes pretty much every single game. So straight away, Chris Wood has 20 minutes on him each and every game. And with Muniz coming on and scoring against Liverpool, I feel like it's only a matter of time until we see, once again, Muniz starting one of these fixtures in the foreseeable future. Now, on one hand, you'd say Raul Jimenez needs to play the trickier games, which would be Chelsea away. On another hand, you might say to yourself, well, they might just throw that game. I don't think they will because it is a derby. So I think we can paint our own pictures here. I think Raul Jimenez is great, but I don't feel like I'm that compelled to go there because his benching could come at any moment. And all it takes is one blank against Southampton, Muniz to have another fantastic performance, and we could see a slight change in that attacking front line. Because remember, Muniz was the man last season, and that could happen. It isn't out of the realms of possibility. In terms of Chris Wood, very, very boring. Very, very boring for our teams. But with Forest fixtures coming up, Brentford, defensively poor. Spurs at home, I think, again, an opportunity for them to be got at. Then Everton and Wolves away, which could be tricky, followed by Liverpool at home and Southampton at home. There's no denying Fulham's fixtures are better, but if I had to pick one right now, I think I would just be a little bit boring and just go to Chris Wood. The numbers are still consistent. He's still the talisman in that side. And the fact that he's getting basically 20 minutes on Raul Jimenez each and every game would be enough for me to go there. But if, obviously, as I mentioned, they do appeal the Cunha ban, I am more than happy to keep Cunha in my team. So a regular feature on these team selection videos is, of course, the graphic provided by RobT FPL. Make sure you check him out on both Twitter and Blue Sky. Now, I love obviously giving my opinion on the games, but I think this is really important just to show the projected goals and clean sheet odds in the SpreadX market. So basically the betting market, where is the money going towards? Because I really do like to have a secondary opinion on certain games. I have my own, and I will obviously kind of sync this with these numbers here. So just going through them very, very quickly. Villa versus Man City. In terms of game week 17, neither team I am actually looking at to buy any players from. I think Ollie Watkins is a problem right now at Villa with Duran stealing some minutes. And City, both offensively and defensively, can't be trusted. But I do have Vardy on the radar longer term, but not for this game week in isolation. And if you own Rico Lewis, I mean, the clean sheet odds are pretty poor. You can play him, and we should get some early team news, which will be important. But I think this game is screaming out both teams to score. In terms of Brentford versus Forest, very relevant to myself because, of course, I have Visser, and I also have Sells as terms of my defensive coverage. Now, in terms of Brentford, if I have Visser and he is playing at home, he's always going to start for me because his form is ridiculous at home. Yes, he did feature for 90 minutes midweek in that EFL Cup game, but I still think he will start. I don't think Thiago will come in, fingers crossed. So I think if you have your Brentford assets, you still start them in those home games. Newcastle, 2 projected goals against Ipswich. Now, of course, they haven't been fantastic away from home, but if you have your Newcastle players, you are, of course, starting them. And if you are someone like a Lewis Hall owner, after the brilliant game week 16, 31% chance of a clean sheet odds. I'm not as bullish, but again, if you don't have already, let's say you have Gabriel, Trent and Robinson, you can see here you probably do play Robinson over Lewis Hall. But outside of that, I think you probably do play Hall. West Ham versus Brighton, again, if you have João Pedro, I think you do have to start them. But again, really rough patch right now for Brighton. Again, you probably play your West Ham assets. The ones that I really want to highlight, Arsenal, 1.9 projected goals, Palace only 0.98, and a 38% chance of a clean sheet for Arsenal. I'm not as bullish on this game. I don't see this being a 2-0 sort of victory, 2-1 for Palace. For Arsenal. I think it's going to be a really close affair, similar to what they are saying here, but I'm not as bullish on Arsenal scoring multiple goals in this game. I think it's going to be a really, really tight affair. But of course, whatever assets you have at Arsenal, you of course play. Chelsea at 2.05 projected goals. Obviously one of the highest scoring teams in the league. But Everton have been fantastic over the last 5 games in terms of clean sheets. I am not bullish on a Palmer captaincy this week, especially when I'm looking at Liverpool at 2.4 projected goals. And I expect that to probably even creep up more when we do get the official news that Romero and Van de Ven, and possibly alongside your doggy, are going to be out for that fixture. It just heightens Mo Salah as a pick, and of course didn't feature at all in the EFL Cup. That just means his minutes are locked in for this Spurs game if they were not already. Fulham is obviously the big one. If we're sat here with a Cunha, who is projected to score 1.5 as a team against Leicester, Fulham look like the game of the week. But as I mentioned, can we guarantee those Raul Jimenez minutes? I think you get 70, and that, based on this, could be better than that of Cunha's. But I'm still of the opinion, if Cunha doesn't get banned, you keep Cunha for one more game week and then look to sell him, even though Raul Jimenez does look tempting with this game being 2.3 projected goals. Man United, if you have your assets, you play them. Defenders, I think you play. We've touched on the Spurs-Liverpool game. So let me know your thoughts on this. For me, right now, the games that really do scream out, I'm so bullish on Liverpool against Spurs in terms of a goal-scoring game that I think Mo Salah is still the standout captaincy pick. Raul Jimenez, of course, has the fixture, but the minutes are questionable. And I think the Arsenal Palace game is going to be a very, very close affair. So I wouldn't be putting the captaincy on any of those Arsenal assets. So moving into my game week 17 team selection, and going into this week, I had one free transfer available and about 0.1 million in the bank. And we had that problem with Aït-Nouri being banned, of course, and I had seen enough. With Wolves' situation, with their long-term fixtures being terrible, Aït-Nouri out for game week 17, and of course the situation where when he returns, he's still 1 yellow card away from suspension. It'll only be for 1 game week, so we can't see it happening, but it could. He was a sell in my eyes. Now, I had Robinson on my radar, however, I'm still a manager somehow who owns Anderson, and I couldn't bring myself to have double Fulham defence. So my hope is that Anderson will be available for the weekend, hence why I ended up selling Aït-Nouri for Munoz. Now, of course, a little bit controversial because Munoz is suspended for game week 17. So bringing in a player that you actually can't play for the game week seems very, very unusual. But this was a player that I wanted long-term in my side. And I think if I went to Robinson, I would have brought him in knowing that eventually I wanted that to be Munoz. So I'm hoping with this situation that Anderson gets past fit, he can start for that Southampton at home game. And if he isn't available, I'm hoping Vandenberg is available and he can come in as an auto sub. Otherwise, I'm playing with 10 men this week. So Fabianski at home against Brighton, I slightly prefer that than Sells away against Brentford, just because Brentford at home have been one of the form teams this season. And in terms of the back three, Gabriel away against Crystal Palace, I think that's going to be a really close affair. Trent away against Spurs. Again, I don't love the situation with Trent. I spoke about this. I don't think he is worth the 7 million, but I just got that peer pressure to go there. But I know long-term the fixtures are great and there will be a double game week for him. So he is just going to be a long-term hold for now. And then Anderson, and we need to get an update on him. I really do hope he is past fit because that will be a massive boost for this team with that Southampton at home game. But Fulham have been very indifferent at Craven Cottage in terms of clean sheets, so I wouldn't be surprised if Fulham were to concede against a Southampton team that now don't have Russell Martin in charge, and we could see it go one of two ways, either a rejuvenated side or a team that absolutely capitulate with no manager in charge. So that is the goalkeeper and defence. Aït-Nouri to Munoz has already been done. So moving into my midfielders, and of course the holy trio of Saka, Palmer and Salah are no surprise staying in the team. In terms of those three, I really do need a big reason to sell them. Saka right now is still the main man in that Arsenal attack, and I'm of the opinion that it's only a matter of time until Arsenal go back to scoring in open play. And even if they do continue to score from set pieces, we know that Saka is one of those that puts the balls in the box, so I have no concerns regarding Bukayo Saka, and I just don't see any other temptation to go to another player. Cole Palmer's long-term fixtures are just ridiculous, and he is one of those few players that can rack up those double-digit returns at any given moment. And Mo Salah is just Mo Salah right now. So those three, we just don't really need to talk about right now in the game. I'm happy with that structure. Now, of course, Anthony Gordon still remains in my Game Week 17 team. And I spoke about how if I wanted to get to Alexander Isak, that would have to be my sacrificial lamb in the team. But as I mentioned, I just can't really bring myself to do a points hit. And after doing the Aït-Nouri to Munoz move, in order to get to Alexander Isak, it now would require a -8. And that would be Gordon down to an Enzo or an Amad Diallo, which I've discussed. And then upgrading Cunha to Alexander Isak. But at the time recording, as I mentioned, Cunha hasn't been banned for the weekend. And I think Gordon away against Ipswich is absolutely fine. Now, I do think he is going to be a transfer out in a couple of weeks' time, but I actually want to keep him in the team as a bit of a placeholder. Main reason why I've done the move, and have him maybe to go to someone like a Eze if I wanted to, or go off in a different direction, depending on what those teams look like in a couple of weeks. So for now, the midfield is locked in with these four, and I'm not looking to sell Gordon as of now. So moving into my Game Week 17 forwards, and of course, as I mentioned, Cunha is going to remain in the team until we hear otherwise. Visser at home against Nottingham Forest. Now, as I spoke about, I do not love the fixture because Forest have been good defensively, but I love Brentford, any team they play at home, and Visser in particular. Now, of course, there is that slight concern that, of course, he featured in the EFL Cup and played considerable minutes, but I think regardless, he is going to get minutes against Forest at home. And you just can't not start him unless we do have Frank come out and say that he is carrying some sort of knock off the back of the game. It's just a no-brainer to play your Brentfords at home against any fixture. I'll play him against Arsenal if they had him there. So more than happy with Visser. He very much has been my MVP this season. Cunha away against Leicester, as I spoke about, Van Nistelrooy's team, while they've picked up a couple of results, have been woeful defensively. And then we've got João Pedro away against West Ham. Probably the player I hate the most in the game right now. I was promised wonders, and that has not been delivered at all. The problem, his fixtures are middling, but his value is great. And we know he's on penalties. So while that remains, I just can't bring myself to sell João Pedro right now. So based on that, if we don't get any more news in the press conferences and the ban doesn't happen for Cunha, this is going to be the team. Aït-Nouri to Munoz, play Anderson. If he doesn't actually get past fit, hope that Van den Berg comes in for him. And then if that doesn't happen, then we're in trouble. I will be playing with 10 men, but I don't think it justifies a -4 for any other player. So let's take a look at captaincy, and then we'll wrap up today's video. So moving into Game Week 17 captaincy, and there probably shouldn't be any surprise on my selection off the back of what I spoke about earlier on in the video. For me, it is absolutely clear that Mo Salah is the standout captain with his away game against Spurs. I look at it and think they've rested some of the big players midweek in their EFL Cup game against Southampton, so they are going to be fresh going into this game against Spurs. Spurs themselves have a really big game in the EFL Cup against Man United, a game that Ange is going to want to win. So I'm expecting him to play some of the big players in that game, and the league right now is very, very middling. So I don't think his priority is going to be the Liverpool game. I think he has to focus on this game against Man United. And of course, Amorim trying to get a trophy in the cabinet is also going to play quite a strong team. So I don't think he can get away with just playing a second string team. And that all plays in the favour of Mo Salah. A Spurs team that are going to be a little bit fatigued. A Mo Salah that has been fully rested. and a Spurs defence that might contain people like Archie Gray, Dragusin, Spence. I think it's a no-brainer. I think Liverpool are the standout team to target with Mo Salah. For me, Everton have been better defensively. We saw that against Arsenal at the Emirates. Cole Palmer, I'm more than happy just to have as a player rather than a captaincy pick. Palace have been great recently. I have no confidence in Arsenal discovering their open play form in that particular fixture. And outside of that, if I had Isak, I could be tempted, but Newcastle's away form has just been so poor. So for me, a no-brainer. Mo Salah the captain, and I am expecting him to deliver in this game week. Let me know who your captain is in the comment section. Yes, guys, okay, that is going to wrap up today's Game Week 17 team selection video. As you can see, the transfer has been made, and now it's the case of sitting back and hoping Anderson is past fit. If you have any questions, please do pop them in the comment section. And of course, if you enjoyed it, make sure to drop a like and smash that subscribe button. I'm aiming to do a Game Week 17 preview video tomorrow morning, just going through any of those final hot topics and questions that you do have. So hopefully that'll be with you tomorrow morning. Have an amazing day. Take care, and I'll see you then. Cheers.